guys, I'm Sally with Owl Crate Jr. and I'm here today to bring you a video I'm very excited about. A month or so ago, I filmed a video all about my childhood favorite books. And as near and dear as all of those ones are to my heart, I also acknowledged that it was a very white list of books. So I promised to follow up with a list of much more diverse middle grade books that I wish I had been able to read when I was a kid. So I have 13 books to share with you. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but let's get going. The first one on my list is The Parker Inheritance by Varian Johnson. This one just came out at the end of March, and I have not finished reading it yet, but what I have read has been fantastic. It is a historical fiction novel set in present day that is all about a young African-American girl who is spending the summer in her grandmother's old town, and she finds a letter that sort of reveals a bunch of family secrets and leads her onto a treasure hunt. Tied into this mystery and this treasure hunt is a really great historical look at what it was like for African-American people to grow up in the American South in the 1950s. The book covers a very approachable but unapologetic look at the realities of racial tension in North America in a way that is suitable for middle graders, but doesn't shy away from the topic, which I think is super important. Next up is The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. The Crossover won the 2015 Newbery Medal, and it is all about family and brotherhood and basketball. What's really neat about Kwame Alexander is that he, for the majority, writes in verse. I have heard from teachers and parents alike that this has been an excellent book to bring non-readers into his stories because they are fast-paced and it's this great use of language, and he also incorporates a lot of sports into his books, which is a great hook for non-readers. The Crossover is just one of many middle grade books that Kwame Alexander has written, and I recommend you look up all of them. Next up, we have The Storm Runners by J.C. Cervantes. This is one of the new books on Rick Riordan's Rick Riordan Presents imprint, which is all about exploring mythologies like Percy Jackson does, but from cultures that we may not know the details of their mythologies as much. So this one is all focused on Mayan mythology. The first book that came out on this imprint was Arusha and the End of Time, which was all about Hindu mythology. There's another one coming out all about Chinese folklore. It's just an imprint that I am unbelievably excited about. There's going to be a lot of cool reads coming out of this soon. Following along for you fantasy fans, we have The Jumbies and Rise of the Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. This is a spooky fantasy duology that is all centered around Haitian mythology. And one takes place in a forest and one takes place in the ocean, and they both look fantastic. Next up, we have Inside Out and Back Again by Tana Lai. This award-winning story is a coming-of-age story all about a girl whose family flees Vietnam in the 1970s and migrates to Alabama. And it's just this adjustment, culture shock, beautifully written. Similar to Kwame Alexander's books, Inside Out and Back Again is mostly written in verse. Next up, we have Jason Reynolds. Now, this is Long Way Down, which is actually a YA book, but he has a huge wealth of writing that you can look into, both for YA, middle grade, and adult. Jason Reynolds is a really interesting case because he is very open about the fact that he didn't read a book, basically, until he was 17 years old, and that was 100% because he didn't see himself or his life experience reflected in any of the books that he was given at school. Jason Reynolds has come a long way since he was 17. He is now a National Book Award finalist. I have not actually read any of his stuff yet. This is going to be the very first book I start with, Long Way Down. The story takes place over the course of an elevator ride, and deals with racial stereotypes, among other things. But if you're looking for a middle grade pick, I recommend starting with Ghost. Basically, if you like anything from sports to Spider-Man to just contemporary, really interesting writing, you will find something in Jason Reynolds. Next up, I have two books to recommend by Grace Lin, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and Year of the Dog. Where the Mountain Meets the Moon is the first of a beautiful trilogy, all related to Chinese folklore. And The Year of the Dog is the first of a very sweet contemporary middle grade series, all about just growing up as an Asian American girl. Lin has also written picture books and early chapter books, and is just a really awesome, prolific writer. Next up, we have Amina's Voice by Hina Khan. This is all about a young Pakistani-American girl named Amina who is trying to find her voice, both literally and figuratively. She loves to sing and wants to be on The Voice, but is much too shy. And also just sort of find her place both in her public American middle school and balance that with the very close-knit community she has at home. This was the first book that came out on Simon & Schuster's new Muslim imprint, Salam, and I'm super excited to see what else they have lined up for the rest of the year. Next up, I'd like to recommend anything by Erin Entrada Kelly. We included Hello Universe in our very first box. One of the characters in this is a young Filipino boy, and you get to really get a cool feel for his family and his grandmother and the stories that he's grown up with. But many of Erin's other stories also incorporate her own experiences growing up as a Filipino American. Up until this point, all of her books have been contemporary novels, but I know from good authority, speaking to her at Y'all West, that she has one coming out next year that is all about Filipino mythology. Next up, we have Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. While I was doing my homework, this is one that came up on basically every list I found of must-read diverse middle grade books. Brown Girl Dreaming is Jacqueline Woodson's memoir, also told in verse, that talks all about growing up during the Civil Rights Movement and what it meant to her to discover poets and writers that spoke to her experience and her family's experience and what it meant to be able to write poetry of her own. Next up is another coming-of-age story, and that is George by Alex Gino. This is the story all about a kid named George who knows that she is a girl despite what everyone else may think. I'm really curious to read this one. Again, it came up on a lot of different lists, and there hasn't been a ton of LGBTQ representation in middle grade, but this was a pioneer when it came out in 2014 especially. So I hope to see more, and I'm definitely putting this one close to the top of my TBR. Next up, I have two great recommendations for Latino representation. Those are The First Rule of Punk by Celia Perez and Love Sugar Magic by Ana Mariano. The First Rule of Punk is all about 12-year-old Malu who loves punk rock music thanks to her white dad who owns a record shop, but she struggles to connect to her Mexican side through her mom's side of the family. When Malu and her mom move to San Francisco, she is suddenly going to a school where the majority of the students are Latino, but even though she looks like a lot of the kids there, she doesn't connect to them culturally at all. Throughout the course of the book, she sort of discovers herself and finds her new place through music and art, and it's this really, really great progression and also has tons of awesome music recommendations. Love Sugar Magic was our January book pick, and it is all about Mexican culture and Dia de los Muertos and magic and baking, and it's just fantastic. I can't recommend that one enough. Next up, we have Sanity and Tallulah by Molly Brooks. This is a rip-roaring fantasy adventure graphic novel that all takes place in space. I just finished this one a couple days ago and I was just blown away by it. First of all, it's just a super fun story. Second of all, it has the most seamlessly put together diverse cast of characters I've ever seen. Even just like in the background of the other people living on this space station, there are people with head wraps and people in wheelchairs and people that you don't necessarily see all the time represented in middle grade or anywhere else. I thought Molly Brooks did it beautifully. It is fast-paced, it is cool science, it has enough text that you don't breeze through it really quickly like you do with some graphic novels, and there is also a three-headed kitten. Need I say more? You can pick this one up in October. And my final recommendation for today is a short story anthology that features a lot of the authors I just talked about, including Kwame Alexander, Grace Lin, and Jacqueline Woodson, and that is Flying Lessons and Other Stories. This is a collection that was put together by the organization We Need Diverse Books and edited by a woman named Ellen Oh, who is one of the co-founders and an author herself. It just sounds like a really great compilation that spans a lot of different genres and a lot of different cultures. I'm definitely going to pick it up. So as I said at the beginning of this video, that is really just the tip of the iceberg if you are looking for diverse books, and I hope that you are. We will be listing a bunch of the resources that I use to find these books, and will continue to build my TBR from, but just a few of those are We Need Diverse Books, Here We Read, Kidlit Exchange, the Our Story app, which was endlessly useful and you can download straight onto your phone, and the 1000 Black Girl Books, which is a fantastic project that was spearheaded by Marley Diaz. I would love to hear what other recommendations you have for me, or if you are going to read any of the ones that I just talked about. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome. Bye!